The whole process of reverse dieting is all about metabolism repair, restoring balance to your body and hormones so that you have a strong, healthy foundation in place to build muscle, lose fat in the future, and your body is never going to lose fat if it feels threatened or in a state of starvation. Hello, and welcome back to Fuel with Erin, the podcast for women looking to level up in midlife with data-driven fitness, nutrition, and real-world health experiences. And I'm your host, Erin Martin. And if that intro sounds a little different than what you're used to, it's because it is. We've shifted the podcast from Find Your Fuel to Fuel with Erin to really drill into more evidence-based health and fitness information for women that still features real-world health experiences, but specifically for women in midlife who find that the old playbook that we were using just isn't working anymore and are looking for ways to level up. And so today, I'm going to be talking about one of those real life experiences, my own journey in a body recomp program, which I've talked about a little bit in previous episodes, but have never really dived into. And so I wanted to talk more about this one because I often hear women say, I want to lose weight. I want to be healthier. I want to feel better in a swimsuit this summer. But really, what you want is to change your body. So actually look and feel better. And that has nothing to do with the scale. Usually what you're looking for in that scenario is what's called body recomposition, which is the changing the composition of your body. So to build muscle and lose fat and get that toned look. And in our 20s, we could lose fat without building muscle and look good because we had youth on our side. But now we're in our 40s and it's such a different scenario. We need to have muscle to look more youthful because naturally we are losing 3 to 8% of our muscle mass per decade after 30. And so with body recomposition, rather than focusing on the scale, you prioritize improving your body's overall ratio of lean mass to fat mass. So for example, if you were 180 pounds and 70% lean mass and 30% fat, you could change that ratio to 80% lean and 20% fat and still be around 180 pounds, but you could look and feel totally different because we know that muscle weighs more than fat and transforms how you look, especially when you lose fat while building muscle to reveal, like I said, that toned muscle that you've built. And there are a ton of benefits to body recomposition beyond just aesthetics. There's everything that building muscle, retaining bone density, all of that what it does for you as you get older. And so for me, when I started my own body recomp program at the end of December last year, I was looking for aesthetics, but I also wanted all those other benefits that you hear about of retaining and building muscle as you get older. And so this entire episode is dedicated to what my program looks like for me, what I've learned along the way, and the tips that I have for you if you're interested in building muscle and losing fat as well. And so this episode's broken out into 3 main sections. We've got nutrition, fitness, and lifestyle. So I'll cover all those key pieces of the program to share how I've approached building muscle and losing fat in midlife because, like I said, the old playbook we used of just move more, eat less wasn't working for me. And if you're relying on what you did in your 20s to lose weight, a lot has changed and your body functions differently now and you need a different playbook. So before I jump into that playbook that I've been using, I first want to give you some background on me and what got me here. So I've been a lifelong athlete. I love being active. I've never had issues with food, but I have overtrained and undereaten, which led to problems getting pregnant in my 30s. I had some energy issues in my 40s because I was just defaulting to what I thought was healthy. Eating clean, I would have a lot of vegetables and protein. I was working out 6 times per week, a lot of running, hot yoga, hits, a lot of the cycle and sculpt classes. And for me, I truly do enjoy working out for the joy of it, but I also would chase the most calories I could burn in a session. And just in general was trying to abide by the playbook of move more, eat less. And I remember a few years ago being on a treadmill on a work trip in a hotel gym, and there's mirrors everywhere, and looking at myself and thinking, like, dang, I don't think I really look like I work out every day. And again, I work out because I love to move my body. But at the same time, if I'm going to put so much hard work into it, I also want to reap the aesthetic benefits. So around this time is when the importance of building muscle for women was becoming more of a thing. I was just hearing about it more, all the benefits of lifting, and thought, okay, it's time. It's time to try this heavy lifting thing. So I jumped in February of 2025 and started to just lift heavy. So I watched some YouTube videos. I got a lifting app and a program to follow. And then within a month or two after that, I started to have these big swings in energy decline. So on top of that, I was experiencing some fatigue, brain fog, some anxiety was getting sprinkled in. And that whole ordeal could be a whole nother podcast episode of itself. But long story short, there were 2 big pieces that I finally figured out of what was going on with my energy issue. And the first was I wasn't eating enough to fuel my muscle growth. So at this point, I didn't realize that I was underfueling. And in that scenario, I was just classically underfueling and not eating enough for what my body needed on a daily basis. And then number 2, I also realized that I had low iron stores. So what's called iron deficiency without anemia, which is having low ferritin. So ferritin is basically your body's iron stores that are pretty critical to functioning and having all your systems work as they should. So those 2 things put me in a little bit of a setback when I went on my lifting heavy journey. But basically at that point, I pumped the brakes. I stopped lifting because I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on with my body. I started to eat a lot more. So I ended up gaining 20 pounds to see if proper fueling would help with my energy levels, which it turned out it was more the iron deficiency. But underfueling was an issue I had. So getting more calories was a good thing outside of the 20 extra pounds that I put on. And that's when I decided, okay, if I was going to do this, I wanted to do it with a program or coach who knew women and could help guide me through the process. Since at this point, I kind of knew how to lift, had a general idea of the programs and workouts that I would do for myself, and getting a little bit better on the eating front since I was still a little bit of a chronic undereater. And so I just didn't really trust myself to try and do it alone again. And I had been listening to a lot of coaches talk about these body recomp programs and how the majority of women who enter them actually have to go through what's called a reverse dieting process to heal their metabolism because so many, just like me, are under eating. Through years of that or yo-yo dieting, what that does is basically gear down metabolism, which is exactly what was happening with me. And I'll talk a little bit more about reverse dieting later on because this is such a big step in the body recomp program. But that's what was a big trigger for me to want to have a coach to help me go through this body recomp process. I was thinking I could do it alone, but I wanted to be serious. And to be honest, a coach has done wonders for me because there are concepts throughout it that are not intuitive to what we learned when we grew up. It's not, like I said, the eat less, move more playbook. It's actually eating more, which can be scary. Or if you're eating enough, maybe you haven't built the right habits to eat the right type of food. And so going against your habits, whether, it's what's been ingrained in you from childhood, that's what coaches can help with. And some of the components that are just as critical to success as the mechanics of the actual fitness and nutrition piece of the program. So I signed up with amazing coaches at Fitness Uncharted. I've had their coach and owner, Megan Hardy, on the podcast before. She was actually the second episode that came on just to talk about building muscle and having food freedom. So I highly recommend checking out that podcast episode. And through them, I'm officially 6 months into this journey, which I am planning to make a lifestyle for the rest of my life. Most people want to see changes right away. They want the 30, 60-day plan to look good in a bathing suit in the summer. But really, there's no silver bullets or fad diets that are going to get you where you want to go. Like, you just have to do the hard work consistently over time. And if done right, I guarantee you will see progress. And I don't think that sits well with a lot of people because, again, so many of us want a quick fix, the simple path. And I think you should be really skeptical of anything that is quick and simple. So technically, I'm in a 12-month program, but we'll be basically trying to adopt this general way of working out, of eating, moving forward. And I can say, like, right now, I am stronger. I'm a better runner. I have my energy back. I think my butt is higher. My arms are more toned than they've been in a long time. I've healed my metabolism. Healed a lot of hormone issues, all because I've dialed in my nutrition. I've incorporated progressive overload, which we'll talk about later on in the episode, to build more muscle. Just basically, my systems have been firing on all cylinders to survive this crazy zone of chaos that is having kids in midlife right now. So where did I start? The reverse diet. I mentioned this before. So this is what most women have to do before anything else. And a reverse diet is just basically where you slowly increase your calorie intake by small amounts. So usually like 50 to 100 calories a day each week to help your body's metabolism repair and adapt to higher food levels without preventing weight gain. And so when you eat in a calorie deficit, like I did for so long, your metabolism will slow down and accommodate as a survival mechanism. And our bodies are truly amazing. Like, it's just adjusting to conditions and adapting. And the problem is when metabolism starts to slow down and you're not giving your body what it needs for so long, you're slowing down the calorie burning process. And you're starting to break down muscle tissue for fuel and can throw critical fat regulating hormones into chaos. And so the whole process of reverse dieting is all about metabolism repair, restoring balance to your body and hormones so that you have a strong, healthy foundation in place to build muscle, lose fat in the future, and your body is never going to lose fat if it feels threatened or in a state of starvation. And so this is where the reframe and thinking about things differently than what you may have grown up with comes into play, because your body will not lose weight if you're not eating enough. So yes, most women like me need to eat more slowly over time to be able to lose fat, which starts with reverse dieting. And just to give an actual example, before the program, I was eating about 1,800 calories a day. And I worked out about an hour a day, 6 days a week. So that puts me at a very active level. And there's something that's called the total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE calculator. It's a tongue twister, which will tell you how many calories you burn per day if you plug in, your gender, height, weight, age, activity level. So when I went in, I actually plugged that in. Guess what it said that I should be eating? about 2,500 calories a day, not 1,800. So that's a huge deficit. That's about 5,000 calories a week under what my body actually needed to keep my metabolism and hormones healthy. And you would think with that type of deficit that I would be losing weight, but nope, my body had adapted. It had downregulated my metabolism. It was kind of wrecking my hormones, and no amount of dropping calories was going to get me to where I wanted to go. So when I saw that, I was like, all right, I get it. I need to properly fuel. I need to eat more. I need to heal my body. And this is also where I went wrong because I did not do that reverse dieting process correctly. At this point, it was before I started the program officially. And again, that's where the 20 extra pounds came from because I just basically went ham. I started eating a lot more than I should have on a daily basis in an attempt to get to that 2,500 a day maintenance where I thought I should be so that I could help fix my energy issue and repair my metabolism. So I probably went from eating 1,800 calories to 2,000, 2,100 a day, which I felt so gross and full with making that jump immediately. It doesn't sound like a lot, but over a week, it was a lot. My body was not used to that after eating one way for 10 years, 15 years. So instead of jumping from 1,800 to 2,100, what I should have done is gone from 1,800 to eating 1,850 every day for a week. And then the following week, gone up to 1,900. The next week, gone up to 1,950 or 2,000, etc. So that's how to properly do reverse dieting. And if done properly, you can heal your metabolism with minimal or sometimes no weight gain. And get your body to be able to then respond down the line to an actual cut or deficit in calories because you have that wiggle room and your body is safe. The other thing is that some people can actually lose weight during that process, which is kind of wild. And another reason that coaches are just so amazing to have, because again, I did this by myself and I really wish I could go back and do the reverse diet piece correctly, because then maybe I wouldn't have put on the 20 pounds. I'd be a little bit farther along in my process. It's kind of like live and learn. Oh, well. So what happens from here? So finally got through the reverse dieting. My body's healthy. I'm eating enough to build muscle. I'm in a place that my body will respond to a fat loss phase. And so from there, the program entails layering in 3 to 4 days a week of lifting heavy using progressive overload, which we'll talk a ton about. And then also while slowly cycling into and out of a cut or a fat loss phase. So that way you're losing fat and building muscle simultaneously throughout this program. So what does this actually look like? So again, I started the program end of December. And at that point, I had got to eating 2,600 calories a day after reverse dieting, which is where my body needed to be at maintenance. I started a weight training with progressive overload 3 times a week because I had done that hard work of reverse dieting before starting the program. And so then I was able to go directly into what's called a cut or a fat loss phase in January. And so my calories and the very specific macro plan that I had, which I'll talk all about in the next section, was slowly reduced every week to lose fat. So in January, calories were cut to, I think, about 2,300 a day. And then the following week, 2,200 for that week. And then the following 2,100, etc., until I got to my lowest calorie point months later, which I think was around 1,600 calories in April. So this cut or fat loss phase went very slowly down over those 4 to 5 months. And in that period, I lost 10 pounds. So I went from 175 to 165. And because I had also been lifting during this time, I also saw changes to the muscle composition on my body. So conceptually, that's how it works. And then once you're in the cut, from there, you slowly come out of it by slowly adding back in that 50 to 100 calories a week. So once I was at my bottom of 1,600 calories a day for a week, the next week I moved to 1,650, and then the following 1,700, etc., which brings us to this point, which at the time of the recording, it's end of June right now, and I'm eating 2,100 calories. So there's more time to go until I'm fully back at my maintenance and more calories to slowly add over the next few months. But that's the overall idea, is that you're in maintenance, a slight calorie deficit, kind of going in and out slowly over time while focused on heavy lifting so that you can really build muscle and cut fat over time. So again, it's the slow in and out so that you're not yo-yo dieting, you're not wrecking your metabolism, you've already primed your body for fat loss, you're fueling it for muscle growth, and then you can see that awesome progress over time. All right, so one more thing before I dive into nutrition, which is that I have a little call out and note on the scale. The scale is not awesome. It lies to you. If you weigh 170 pounds and you lost 5 pounds of fat and gained 5 pounds of muscle, the scale would not change. But I guarantee you would look different. Like your pants would be looser, you would feel different. So I do not love the scale. I think there are way better tools out there that work for measuring a body recomp program. The gold standard is a DEXA scan, which will basically measure your body composition. So actually tell you your total bone density, lean muscle mass, and fat that's in your body. And then similarly, there's something called InBody, which is very similar, just not as accurate. And that's the one that I've used a bunch because sometimes they'll have it at gyms as part of memberships. It's at my gynecologist's office, so I'll just use it for $20 there. So they're a little bit easier to find and cheaper. And then on top of that, you could also use progress photos. So I know these are a little rough and can feel cringe when you're doing it for the first time, but it's actually a really good way to compare yourself 3 or 6 months ago and to see the actual change in muscle definition is pretty awesome. And it's one of those things where you can't go back and take it. So just take it. Take it and don't look at it. But if you have goals, I guarantee if you compare yourself now after a program that you'd been doing for a year, it's pretty cool to see the progress. So progress photos is another one. And then of course, just how you feel. Like, are your clothes fitting better? Do you have more stamina for your kids? Like, are you not bonking at 2:00 in the afternoon? Do you feel stronger and more confident? So all better measurements, in my opinion, than just the scale. And especially because your body can fluctuate so much on where you're at, just like based upon your cycle, what you're eating, how much water you're retaining, if you're inflamed. Like that's a big one for me. One day I'll feel great, and then the next I feel so gross and I'm up 5 pounds. And that's usually because something isn't sitting well after, pizza and alcohol at the pool. So all those things and being 5 pounds up on a scale does not equate to fat gain. I haven't gained 5 pounds in 1 week. Like I'm just fluctuating. So that's also why if you go on vacation and you come back 5 pounds heavier, it's probably not that you gain 5 pounds of fat. I mean, it's possible, but that would mean that you would have to have eaten like 17,000 more calories above what you normally eat to gain that type of fat. So it's probably just because you're constantly eating out There's a lot of alcohol, like travel, all of that gets you really inflamed. And then the other piece too is if you don't regularly eat carbs, but then you go ham on vacation eating carbs, your body is actually going to store more water weight because your glycogen stores are filling back up. So if that's, kind of sound like you in that you think I can't look at a bagel without gaining weight, well, it probably could just be water weight, which again isn't fat. It's what comes with eating carbs, which is a good thing. You want water in your body and water in your muscles, and that is not fat gain. That is just water weight. So again, the scale can send us sideways. Don't over-index on it. I'll be done with that spiel now. Divorce yourself from it. All right, so next, let's talk nutrition. And then we'll get into physical fitness and lifestyle after that. So, all right, you already got the breakdown of how the metabolism repair phase and establishing maintenance goes, and then going into a deficit and then back to that maintenance. So again, it's all this cycle. And the other big piece to the nutrition side is macros. So macros is short for macronutrients, which are the 3 essential categories of nutrients that your body needs in large amounts for the energy and basically your just daily function. So, you've got your carbs, fats, and protein. And so again, for example, just looking at me right now, I weigh 165 and I'm aiming for a ratio of 39% carbs, 31% protein, and 30% fat. But again, this can be very different ranges for everybody. But for me, that translates to that 2,100 calories that I'm at right now, which breaks down into 205 grams of carbs, 163 grams of protein, and 70 grams of fat. So why does this matter? All 3 of those are really important to get in generally those right ratios. We know that protein is crucial for building and maintaining lean muscle mass, which naturally declines after 30. The complex carbs are helping us provide more sustained energy and helping regulate blood sugar, helping prevent any daily energy crashes or mood swings with declining estrogen as we age. And then, of course, healthy fats like avocados and nuts and olive oil are essential building blocks for hormone production and brain health. So my macro ratios a few years ago were all out of whack. I really over-indexed on protein, which is not usually the case for women. Usually women are falling flat on the protein side of things, which I was not. And for me, coming out of a cut, like I mentioned, my protein macros target is 163 grams a day and will continue to slowly increase as my daily calories increase. And so for me, that's eating basically my body weight in grams. And so again, for me, protein was not the problem. I think most women do struggle with the protein side, which is why you hear everyone talk about prioritize protein. But for me, my problem was that I wasn't eating enough of those healthy fats, definitely not enough carbs, especially given what I needed to fuel my longer runs and workouts. And so I had to course correct my nutrition to get those ratios back into balance and give my body what it needed for that performance and hormone and metabolic health. So you can calculate your own macros. Again, the exact ratio is just so dependent on you and your age, activity level, specific goals, whether you're just lifting versus running. There's so many different factors that go into it. And so in general, it can be helpful just to know the general range, and you could go on to any macro calculator online, like calculator.net has some. I think MyFitnessPal has some you can use to figure out what your range should be. I use MyFitnessPal to enter my exact macro goals, and then I can log my food so I can see how I'm doing on hitting those macro goals every day. And I personally have tracked food on and off for the past 10 years, so I don't find it annoying or hard because I kind of have that motion down. But my end goal isn't to track food and macros forever. It's to retrain yourself and your habits to be able to understand what building a good meal is and to be able to build balanced meals intuitively. And again, I'm getting there. My default is always meat and veggies, so I have to work on getting more of those healthy fats and carbs in there. I used to do eggs for breakfast every morning, and I do still love eggs, but I've started to do oatmeal with some protein powder and almond milk. I do a lot of bowls where I'll throw in nuts and rice or sweet potatoes to get some of more of those great complex carbs in there. Dinner, we usually do chicken, steak, ground bison or fish, paired with a complex carb like quinoa, beans, spinach to make it a salad, broccoli or asparagus. And I cook for the family, which does make it so much easier to plan meals and make something that's going to fit with my macros for the day. I know some people plan out their macros and meals for the following day to set them up for success. I'm just not awesome at meal planning, so I just do it on the fly. But it can get you in trouble if you just do it on the fly like I do, because if you go all day with minimal protein and then all of a sudden it's dinner and you have 100 grams of protein left, like, oh, that's not going to happen. So again, that's why you hear so often prioritize protein, because so many people fall short on that macro specifically. And so prioritizing it up front to make sure you get it in is such a good idea. And then on top of just understanding your macro ratio and hitting your macros, I think the other piece is hitting them with real food. If you're hitting your macros, but it's all processed garbage, like, it's going to leave you inflamed and not seeing the results you want. So that's the macros piece. And then the other note on fats that I just want to mention real quick is that it's really easy to go over on portion size for fats because their sizes are so small. A tablespoon of peanut butter, like, if you've ever measured out a tablespoon of peanut butter, it is small. Like, it's hard for me to spread a whole piece of toast with just a tablespoon because it's not a lot. And so you may just dig into a jar of peanut butter with a knife or a spoon and think that it's a tablespoon, but it's really like 5. So measuring is super helpful when going through this program. That's another key piece of the nutrition piece, is not just track your macros, but measure a lot of your food until you get, like, you can just eyeball it. Because if you're in a cut and you're trying to be consistent to be in that deficit to lose weight, like, let's just talk through a day. Like, peanut butter scenario. Instead of, you log a tablespoon of peanut butter on your toast, which would be 100 calories, and it's actually 4 tablespoons, that's 300 extra calories. And then maybe at dinner, if you dump a 1/4 cup of olive oil on your salad at night, which again is not much, like, will that actually touch each leaf? I don't know. Probably not. There's not that much in a 1/4 cup. And you log it as 2 tablespoons instead of 4, which is in a 1/4 cup, then that's an extra 200 calories. And so all of a sudden, you've got 500 extra calories that you have snuck in that you haven't logged, that you didn't realize. And so you're wondering why you're not losing fat. So I just say that, and that you definitely have to get accurate with your nuts and your spreads and your dressings. They can make a big difference. So those are ones that I always try to be careful about. I don't exactly have measurements down yet. The peanut butter situation is definitely my exact scenario. I've gotten to the place where I can pretty much eyeball most meats and other things because I've practiced some of the measuring. So now I have building a plate and some of those portions down. And then I'd also say that the nice thing about getting to my actual maintenance and hitting my macros completely is that it helped eliminate any after dinner cravings. So those actually weren't any, I would say, like big issue for me, but I did find myself going to the pantry for just like a little something, usually that peanut butter, maybe some bread, because I wasn't eating enough throughout the day. My body just wanted more. And so that is completely gone. Also, want to note there would be this monthly zit that would pop up right before my period, like clockwork, for like the past 10 years of my life. And I'm not exactly sure if it's eating the right macros or just like eating the amount that I should, but proper eating has helped me completely balance out my hormones, and I have not had a zit on this chin area where I usually get them right before my period, literally in 6 months. So, knock on wood, like I keep my nutrition on track, I keep a clear face, and that has been another awesome side benefit to this whole program. And then the last nutrition tip I have for you guys is around supplements. So, I personally want to get what I need from food first and foremost. I think so many people treat supplements as sources when really they should be what they're called, supplemental to your diet. And so for me, I did some comprehensive labs just to understand where my body was at and then know where I should supplement. So, like most women, I was low in vitamin D, so I supplement that. Take that in the morning along with omega 3s, B12. And then I also like protein powder once or twice a day. I'll have it in my oatmeal in the morning or a smoothie as an after workout snack. And then creatine as well, which is one of the most researched supplements and has been proven to increase muscle strength and growth and help with a ton of cognitive benefits. There's so many benefits, it seems like, is being found out and come out on creatine. So that's one where I take 5 milligrams a day and I'll dump it into my after workout smoothie. And I've also purchased the creatine chews for travel or when I'm lazy and I don't want to just mix it into something, which I really like. And I really like the Thorne and Momentous brands for all of those. So the omega-3 and vitamin Ds and protein powder. And you can use the code FUEL with Erin for a discount, which it's also, I'll drop it in the show notes. Momentous uses high quality ingredients. They avoid any proprietary blends and fillers. They have really rigorous testing and they're backed by Dr. Stacy Sims. So I've really liked that brand. I really like their lime flavored creatine. It tastes like Gatorade. And then they also have protein powder travel packs for vacations. So I love those for when traveling. And then I'm also a big fan of Lesion protein powder. That's usually what I dump into my oatmeal in the morning. They have so many crazy flavors. I haven't even tried them all, but I'm a fan of the chocolate and vanilla, just plain Jane, straightforward, in smoothies and my oatmeal bowls as well. But again, that's just me. It's specific to what my body needs. So I encourage you to really do, if you need to figure out what's best for your body, do lab testing because you want to test and not guess and just, be taking something that seems like the hot new trend that your body might not need. All right, now we're going to move into the physical fitness side of the program. So I have been super active my whole life. I played soccer in college. I've done some 25Ks. I did a 50K. So lots of trail running, lots of hot yoga. I have a Peloton that I've used religiously. So lots of cardio, and I've never lifted weights. So all of that was new to me. But at this point, I had seen enough research on the benefits of weightlifting that I was definitely all in. And although it was a scary transition for me to go from what I previously was doing to lifting weights, I was ready to make the change. And what I mean by scary is that basically I was going from working out 6 to 10 hours a week, which burns a lot of calories, to lifting 3 hours a week plus walking while eating more. So that just did not compute for me. It seemed too magical to be true. Like I was going to be working out less, eating more, and getting more results while being stronger. But yes, that is like literally what is happening, which is wild. And so I've heard of other body recomp coaches actually talk about this before when they've had clients like me who were just doing too much, like working out every day, doing the orange theories and the spin classes, trying to, on top of that, walk 15,000 steps a day while working and trying to parent like kids and just all of the craziness that is midlife. And those type of things we could handle in our 30s, but our body has changed. We are going through cougar puberty is what I like to call it instead of perimenopause, where actually pulling back on stressors like overexercise can help get better results. And there's one example I'm remembering where their client like literally did nothing else besides pull back a little on exercise and took their 15K steps a day down to 10K and made like no other changes and were able to reduce the inflammation in their body, have more energy, and actually lose some fat because their body was just no longer in a state of high stress that was signaling to the body to hold on fat. So all of these concepts are so wild to me, but it does make sense once you understand the physiology behind it. So right now, I'm lifting 3 to 4 times a week. I started with 3, doing a lower body day, upper body day, and then a full body day. And then when I moved to 4, where I'm at right now, I usually do 2 upper body and then 2 lower body. And you can see some of those typical workouts on my Instagram page, Fuel with Erin, but each workout is usually 40 to 45 minutes and 5 exercises, aiming for about 8 to 12 reps per set. And then the key is lifting heavy and progressive overload. So first, let's talk about the heavy. Like, you just got to get after it. And so there's a few ways to gauge if you are lifting heavy enough. There's something called reps in reserve. So that's where you pick a weight where you can complete the set and only be able to do 1 to 3 more reps before failure. So you're stopping right before failure. Like if you're just like horrible form and you're failing, like you've gone too far. And that's the biggest trigger for me that I need to go down in weight or if I'm pushing too much, is if my form starts to get horrible and I'm failing. So a lot of it initially for me, trying to do reps in reserve is just testing it out. Like you have to get the technique down. You can do that with a warm up and then slowly increase to the right heavy weight to start testing your limits, to ease into it. And there's some days where I just feel like shit and my heavy weight is going to be less than the week before. And that's okay. As long as over time, you're kind of slowly increasing and pushing it over time. Because you can't do 5-pound bicep curls for a year and expect to build any muscle. But there are, some lower entry places where I think it is a great place to start, like even just body weights. Starting with body weights, like doing knee push-ups, air squats, lunges. Like those are all great ways to get the movements down and start to prime your body before adding weights. And I'm also the weirdo where you'll see at the playground doing air squats and attempting pull-ups on the monkey bars. And so I just say, remember, you don't have to always incorporate movement during your workouts. Just squeeze those into playing with kids or doing push-ups or squats in between meetings with kids. There's this whole concept called exercise snacks that I won't rabbit hole on, but it's a thing if you want to check it out. So squeezing in just like high burst, burpee, air squat, jump squats type things for 2-minute intervals before meetings. And they're apparently called exercise snacks. So check it out. But that's heavy. Like, you have to lift heavy. And the second piece to that is progressive overload, which is basically that you continue to push yourself to lift more over time. And technically, it doesn't have to be just increasing weight. There's other ways to increase stress on your body to continue to push for gains, like scaling up the volume you do, or you could slow down your lifts. So instead of doing like a bicep curl that takes 1 second to go up and down, you go up for 4 and then down for 4. And that's what's called more time under tension on your body. Or you could decrease your rest time between sets. So for example, right now I rest 90 seconds between sets, but you could also shorten that to 60. But for me, the biggest thing that I do for progressive overload is to continually increase the actual weight that I'm lifting over time. So for example, for barbell back squats, I started, I think, at like 95 pounds, and now I'm up to 165 on a good day. And so next week, I'll put on 5 more pounds after a warm up to see if I can do it. So I'll try 170, and if I can do 8 reps with great form, then awesome. And after that, the following sets, I might have to scale down to get into that 8 to 12 rep range, because again, at 170, I'm doing 8. And I want to stay in that 8 to 12 range, so I might have to go down to 165 or do 7 reps. But that's fine. So the goal now is that for the exercises you're doing, you're just trending up over time. And that is what progressive overload is. You're continuously stimulating and forcing your body to grow and adapt. Now, there are some lifts that you're just not going to be able to continuously increase the weight of. So like lateral raises. I am tapped out at 15 pounds in each arm right now. So it's safe to say I'm never going to get to 30 pounds in each hand. So not every week is going to be a PR. And in the beginning, for me, I had some awesome newbie gains. It felt like I was always pushing the needle and, doing a new PR every week. But then at some point, like, that levels off and you're going to start to make smaller strides, which again, like, that's great. It just, you need to always be trying to push it to get that progressive overload, to not plateau. And that's where an app for tracking is super helpful. I use a fitness app through the program that I'm using to see what workouts are in deck for the week. And then it queues up what weight I did last week and how many reps I did. So I can continue to try to do a little bit more every week. And then it logs everything and ensures that I'm hitting that progressive overload that's needed to make gains versus just randomly lifting for 45 minutes and having no rhyme or reason to it. And there's a ton of free apps out there for this. I've also used Strength Log as a tracker before. That's cool in that I think there's a free version. You can schedule your workouts for the week. Of course, you can write it down, but I'm such a data person. I love my watch and my stats. And so having everything in an app to analyze, I just love. And then in terms of the actual workouts, I feel like there's a lot of ways you can split your workouts, but it doesn't have to be complicated. So again, for me, I do 2 upper and 2 lower days, but you could also do upper body, lower body, full body. So in general, you want to try and train each muscle group 2 to 3 times a week. And for example, I'm doing a leg day today. And so on deck, I think I looked at it, it's like barbell hip thrust, back squat, sumo squat, Romanian deadlifts, and then walking lunges. So I'll do that workout every week on one of my leg days for about 6 weeks. And then the exercises are rotated to change up what I'm doing every 6 weeks. Sometimes I do abs, but really all of these workouts work your abs already because they include compound movements. And compound movements or compound lifts are basically movements that engage multiple muscle groups simultaneously. And so they're working a lot of different things, and they're also working your core. So I don't have to do dedicated core workouts. And I would say my stomach is one area where I have seen some of the biggest changes. In general, I carry a lot of my weight in my torso because I'm 5'11". So I've always had a little bit more of a flatter stomach, but I've never had quite the definition like I'm seeing now, which is pretty cool. And again, I haven't been doing any dedicated abs outside of just lifting heavy. So that's on the fitness programming side right now. And one thing that I'm personally starting to do is fold back in running. So I just basically took a huge break to focus on lifting and making sure that I got 10K steps a day because I work from home. And so taking breaks between meetings or taking walking meetings is so helpful for me, not only for the mental break, but also for what's called your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. So what the heck is that? Your NEAT is basically the number of calories that you burn throughout the day outside of your workout. So like fidgeting, walking, doing the dishes. And the crazy thing is, this NEAT can make up anywhere from 15 to 30% of your total daily energy expenditure. So that's a big source of calories burned in a day, and walking can help so much. So walking after meals, walking to take breaks, getting those 10,000 steps in is just like such a great way to increase your NEAT. And it's one of the biggest things that you can control related to how many calories you burn in a day, which is a little crazy because you're like, wait, isn't that what workouts are for? But just to break that down a little, there are 4 main components to how many calories you burn a day. So the first one is your basal metabolic rate, so BMR. So that's like the energy that you use just to breathe and exist and your body to function. And that contributes to about 60 to 75% of your total burn. And then there's the NEAT, which I just talked about. So that's, again, all the energy that you do that's not the sleeping, eating, or workouts. It's your walking, fidgeting, all of those things. And that's 15 to 30% of your total burn. And then after that, the third bucket you have is your thermic effect of food. So that's the energy that you use to digest and process food, which is around 10% of your total calorie burn. And that is also why protein is having such a big moment, because it takes more energy to burn protein and process protein than it does carbs and fat. And then the fourth bucket is your actual exercise. So that's called the exercise activity thermogenesis, so EAT. So that's just literally the calories that you burn due to your workout, which contributes around 5 to 10% of total calorie burned in a day. So that is one of the reasons that you're seeing such a big push right now in the industry to lift and walk 10,000 steps versus doing high intense cardio sessions, because your workout is a small percentage of your daily calorie burn compared to overall daily activity, and just making sure that you walk more and move throughout the day, which is kind of crazy. And I'm definitely a 3 times a day walker. So I try to do it after meals, try to do it in the morning to get that sun exposure first thing. There's a ton of benefits from getting light exposure and being outside in the morning. And like I said, I'm slowly layering back in trail running, and I did sign up for a High Rocks race at the end of November. So I have some different modalities I'm going to be trying to layer in, which can be a little tricky because I just don't want to torch my legs. There's a very specific schedule that I have to put into place between leg day and large trail run days to not completely torch my legs. So right now I've been trying to do the long runs on the weekends and then just kind of throw in some high rocks training, or simulation sessions at the end of lifting. So doing some wall balls and farmer carries. And then I'll probably get a little bit more serious into that once we get closer. But that's where I'm headed. And like I said, I've seen so many gains from just hitting my macros, from lifting 4 times a week. I haven't done an in-body scan in a while, but I know I've lost 10 pounds. I know I'm getting stronger. I can see it. I can feel it. My metabolism is revved and back to normal. I used to be one of those people who was literally cold all the time. And now I can wear tank tops inside. I don't have to be the weirdo who's wearing a puffy on a meeting because my body is actually functioning normally, like I should. And I have more sustained energy, and I think just a more healthy relationship with health and fitness now too. I used to be so obsessed over restricting calories and working out every day and just basically in a way that wasn't positive. And so now I feel like I have more time for other things. I have more food freedom and just more balance than what I was doing before. So it's seriously just a win-win. There's, I think, some good memes out there that's like, I'm at the stage of life where I don't need to look good in a bikini. I just want to look good on an MRI, CAT scan, and X-ray. And hell yes. Like, I'm not going to lie, I do want to look as good as I can if I'm putting the energy in. But really, right now, I just want to be the strongest version of myself, not the skinniest. Because the strongest version has the most energy for life, for my kids and my family and friends. And the years of being an Energizer bunny in your 20s is just long gone at this point, and that 20-year-old playbook doesn't work anymore. So I have a few more lifestyle tips before we close it out. And I just want to mention these because these are just a few other really critical components to being successful if you're trying to do a body recomp. And so the first one, as you've probably gleaned throughout a lot of what I said, is that you do have to get your hormones right. And again, this is like probably a 20 episode series to actually dive into and unpack, but I want to mention it because you could be doing everything right, but if your hormones are all out of whack, you won't lose weight. So it's definitely something to be tuned into. For me, for example, I had undereaten for so long, I'd thrown my thyroid off and it was really impacting my energy. And so one provider suggested I go on medication. I said no because I personally try everything under the sun that I can before medication. And so after I did my reverse diet, I got tested again and my thyroid was completely fixed, all because of proper eating, which is kind of wild. Like, that's the power of nutrition. And I think too many providers just jump straight to a prescription and never ask about nutrition. So that's one piece that you have to think about for yourself. And then another thing for me was testosterone. For years, my gyno had been telling me I have low testosterone. My level was 17 when 100 is really more of that optimal range. And so I was thinking, okay, well, maybe if I eat right, lift weights, that'll help improve it. And it did help me get to 37, testosterone level of 37. But then I just plateaued from there and I couldn't improve it anymore. So I did start testosterone, taking troches, which is a form of TRT where I put half a troche in between my gums and cheek in the morning and one at night. And that has helped me a ton. My energy levels have gone up. I feel like I recover easier after lifting. So that's been really great for me. But again, your body is so different than anyone else's. You can't just think, oh, this worked for a friend, it can work for me. Like, you have to figure out your own body and your own hormones for what specifically is going to work for you. But I did want to call that out because cougar puberty, that I like to call it, is seriously a wild ride out there. It jacks up our hormones like crazy, and oftentimes that is a key piece that could be holding you back. And we do have a few podcast episodes that dive deeper into HRT if you want to check those out. There's the Navigating HRT and Perimenopause with Dr. Maritza Snyder, and Blood Work and Reclaiming Your Health with Katie Whalen if you want a place to start to learn more on that front. And then a few other foundational things that sounds like no duh, but they're very critical. You know the first one, it's sleep. This is when muscle growth happens. During sleep, and specifically deep sleep, your pituitary gland releases about 60 to 70% of your body's daily human growth hormone. So that's what's the primary driver of tissue repair and muscle regeneration and bone restoration. So if you don't get enough sleep, you're hurting your progress because your body does not have the opportunity to repair and build and grow. I could literally go on and on about how critical sleep is. There's many books written on this one, but it's so important that there's a lot of coaches and trainers that literally will just recommend skipping an early morning workout for sleep, because that's how critical sleep is. And it will have a bigger overall positive impact on your health and fat loss than cutting into it to get a workout in. All right. And what else? We've got drinking half your body weight in water, reducing stress when possible. Of course, that's easier said than done. In your 40s, declining estrogen and progesterone levels during perimenopause make you more sensitive to cortisol. So if your stress hormone levels are chronically elevated, your body is going to operate in this survival mode and just like cling on to fat and burn muscle for energy instead, which is not what you want. So some of those are just really the sexy foundations, guys. Lift heavy, eat well, drink water, move your body. And I do want to give a plug for the body recomp program that I use again, Fitness Uncharted. They are such an awesome program. All their coaches are women. My coaches, Jordan and Megan Hardy, who I had mentioned had been on the podcast, are so amazing. Again, that episode is, I think, the second episode on building muscle and finding food freedom with Megan Hardy. She's such a good listen if you're interested in learning more. And she also has her own podcast, which I love. It's called The Muscle Makeover, which highly recommend checking out. For so many reasons. They've got some great episodes on reverse dieting, building muscle, and finding food freedom. And again, I think you can do a body recomp program on your own if you get all of these components down. But for me, it's just been so valuable to have a coach who knows the playbook and can help guide me and adapt everything to how I'm feeling or doing that week. I'm just one of those people who wants to plow through a workout no matter what, no excuses. Being tired is not a reason to slow down. So being able to have someone who can just help you step back and adjust the plan for the week is huge, because the program doesn't have to be rigid. It can meet you where you are, what's going on in your life, if you're traveling, if there's vacation, other priorities. So a coach just really helps make the program customizable to you and what's happening with you for the week. So that's my body recomp story. I know there is so much there. If you guys enjoyed the episode, I would love if you could give it a like or a rating wherever you're tuning in from. And I am such an open book. So seriously, if you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram or drop a comment in, and I'm happy to share anything that I've learned on my journey. I hope you guys got some good stuff out of this, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to another episode. If you enjoyed the show and want to support us, please leave a comment or review. And before we go, I have to give you the obligatory medical and legal disclaimer. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The advice and recommendations we discuss are not intended as medical advice and do not replace the treatment or care of a physician or any other primary healthcare provider. Using the information shared today does not create a doctor-patient relationship, and it should not be used to diagnose or treat any health problem. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making changes to your diet, exercise routine, or medications. The use of any information provided is solely at your own risk. So in a nutshell, let's be smart and remember these stories and conversations are for educational purposes only to help other women find the fuel to live their best lives. We'll see you in the next episode.